Hello, hello. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. This is Feedback and Friends on ILBC TV. We are the International Live Beats channel. And what we do is we provide workshops, hangout sessions, mentorship, and actually real life events and competitions and lots of good stuff and prizes and oh my, lions and tigers. So before we get started and I introduce our guests, I just want to tell you about our actual real life event that's coming up. If you live in the UK, we are going to have the International Live Beat Challenge UK edition. What does that mean? It means that we are going to have live electronic performers doing showcases. We're going to have some planned showcases by Matt Black from Cold Cut, Freer from Slamboree, Gramsci, who's a really awesome MC, and myself and Stirs, who's a drummer. We also have some showcases in collab with EMOM, the Electronic Music Open Mic, and they've brought forth some of their coolest performers, including Linus Fitness Club, Didactic MK, Nada and Furs, and Fourth Engine. And just to give you a little preview, I heard that one of them actually hooks up fruit to MIDI controllers. So it's pretty wild. If you are interested in coming, you can get tickets at the link on the bottom right here of the screen. It's bit.ly links, ILBC tickets. And if you would like to submit to be a contestant, because there's also a competition, people are also going to be competing to win some prizes and doing the best routines, you can do so at ilbc.tv/UK challenge. It's going to be at Lost Horizon in Bristol. So really cool venue, and we are going to stream it. So if you can't make it in person, you can come and watch and be a part of it virtually with us. We're going to be interviewing people, doing little workshops, the same thing that if you've watched our Curiosabot special that you might have seen. So anyways, I would love to see you all there virtually or in real life. And speaking of friends, I have some very cool friends with me today. Of course, the lovely Nathaniel Wyvern.
Hello, everybody.
And our special guest this week is Aiden. Aiden, give us a little Cliff's Notes on yourself, please, for those people who might just be meeting you now.
Hello, I'm Aiden. I'm a producer, vocalist, songwriter, artist extraordinaire. Currently residing in Boston, but we're gonna move soon. And yeah, I've released an album this year. Have a live show all set up and doing those now, so I'm kind of, I guess, on the rise. And happy Pride Month.
Wicked, yes. Happy Pride Month indeed. Amazing. So we have some good people up tonight. I actually didn't do an everyone ping, so the queue is probably still fairly open. Feel free to tell your friends. Feel free to stir some up in the EDMP Discord chat or the Twitch chat. If you want to submit, type !help queue. We're going to get rolling with our very first submitter, which is a longtime favorite user, Yes Please, aka YPNT, with a track called Wine. And was there a feedback comment of what they would like, Nathaniel?
There was indeed. Just trying to get back into the producing groove, trying to judge my current level post-hiatus, and what I need to work on. I'm trying to see if I'm getting close enough to having stuff that's worth polishing and releasing, basically figuring out if I'm an overconfident newbie, a will never get there intermediate, or if I'm approaching that pro worth releasing level. I'd appreciate feedback on what's missing to get onto that pro level. Thank you.
All right. Let's see.
Stuck on that smile.
What? So I'll start it again that way.
Oh, I'm in love with your style. I'm stuck on that smile. And your shade of lipstick is driving me wild. I'm addicted to you and the way that you move. Girl, when you start whining, I get drunk off you. My lady in red, you're knocking me dead. Whenever you turn up, it goes to my head. I lose all control, sell myself and my soul. Get a sip, want some more, pour it out on the floor. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Wine until the day come done, wine until the day come done. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, catch that wave and it's too sexy. I love a big flex and you stay flexy. You can touch it up and put that chest on me. Full court press with the breast on me. You a bad gal with a ling body. I'm a bad man with a limp VD. We ain't gotta chat, you got the recipe. Come put the wine on me, grind on me. The way you rub it up, it put a shine on me. I love it when you spend a little time on me. Maybe we can go and set up iPhone free. Wine on me, grind on me. Looking like we fucking but ain't trying to be. Finally, it might just be everything I wanted when you whine on me. Wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Wine until the day come done, wine until the day come done. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah. Wine until the day come done, wine until the day come done. Girl, come put that wine on me, yeah.
Oh, some sweet, sweet fire to start the day from YPNT, aka Yes Please. Aiden, I think this is a good one for you to feedback on as a fellow vocalist / producer. What are your feelings on that?
I thought that was really, really actually smooth. The mix on that I thought was pretty smooth and nice drum samples. I think if he is wondering whether it's releasable, I think it is and it could be. It's like pretty solid. It seems complete. The structure is there. There's a catchy hook. I do think if you're looking for like extra little goodies and ear candy, that could definitely help with the song. And I almost got like a video game sort of vibe from the bass synth. So I thought like maybe little arps or little like ear candy in higher registers could be really pretty, in a similar like video game kind of style. And then I also said that, I wrote little notes. So I also wrote that we could maybe have some new instrumentation or something after the first chorus. I just thought like going back into that verse, the energy kind of maybe dipped a little too much. I don't know. It's up to you.
As always. Yeah, I agree. We're getting our ear candy drinking game started promptly tonight. I was going to say a similar thing, and maybe even some more like organic, little plucky or guitar, like little bits, because you have a really soft round mix and it's really pleasant, and like Aiden said, it's smooth. But maybe just to have some contrast, you could have something edgy, like string pickings, like harmonics, like sort of squeaky, slightly dissonant noises that just give you like a high-end sparkle and also give you a little bit of textural contrast. But I mean, you could release it as is, and you know, most people won't notice necessarily, but these little differences can also elevate that into sort of a very like high-level memorable tune instead of just like a really good tune. Natty.
I feel like parts of it wanted to be a really dub sort of sound with the vocal processing. I mean,
Yeah.
that especially like that rap section as well reminded me of the song "Red Red Wine." There's this really weird sort of spoken rap section in that song. I mean, it's a great song, but it's sort of like, okay, why do we have this? But you know, fun of it. This is definitely as well a little song about wine. Funny enough, maybe it just brings that out in people.
Why? Well, I don't know. Have you never drank wine, Nathaniel?
I don't like wine.
You don't like wine? What
I
about?
haven't found one I like yet so far. So
Oh my gosh, Nathaniel's about to come visit me in Spain.
and all they
folks.
drink is wine. They don't have water.
They don't have anything, but I mean that's really it.
But as part of the whole ear candy thing, though, maybe experimenting with that sort of allowing some of your words to filter out into the space occasionally would be actually quite cool and classy almost in this context.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It's a really
putting some,
nice song, though.
You could put like dub echo on some other instruments there too, and I think that would really like space out the song. Give it some more spacey vibes.
Yeah, spacey vibes, atmosphere, texture, like little shimmery spacings. Because you have all the main elements, you just need that ear candy. Uh, next up
Good
we
job.
have AZ. What's the comment there? Nathaniel in his lovely Scottish dulcet tones. He's going to read the comments from the users. I thought it would be a little more dynamic.
Okay. Just a dude producing in his room for fun. Mixing feedback would be appreciated. What elements would you change or add? Be harsh. Thanks.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll be
What?
Yeah, all right. Be harsh, they say. Well, it was a little bit like Candy Crush theme kind of 8-bit. I mean, the harshest thing I can say is that I think that there is a line, right? There's chiptune and there's kind of cutesy stuff, but there has to be a little bit of sophistication on it somewhere. Otherwise, you run the risk of it just sounding like, okay, I had a Mario Paint session today, and no shade really on Mario Paint. Some people are going for that, but I would say you need to jazz it up a little bit and do some more sound design. And I actually wasn't even looking at the chat, but James Slack just said the exact same thing. I think the song could benefit from more substantial sound design. Everything sounds a bit basic. What about you, Aiden? I'm not very good at being harsh.
I mean, yeah, I think that's like a major thing is like, where else do you want to take the song besides this like kind of main idea? Because it seems like this song is one idea over some time and with a breakdown, but then back into the same idea. So it could change up a little bit with the melody and even with the harmony and of course with the synth sounds. But I mean, I could hear this in a commercial for some gamer equipment.
Nathaniel.
I don't know if I can get harsher than I could see Walmart using it to sell gaming peripherals.
I didn't say that. It was close.
So, I think even with happy stuff, there is a room for tension. Like, sometimes to appreciate the happiest parts of your song, you want to hint that maybe things aren't quite 100% all there yet, and then you return back to the idea of, okay, everything's fine again. And right now, it's sort of like this idea just sort of comes, they introduce itself, says hi, and then we're left with, well, why?
Well, why? That's a pretty good harshness. I did kind of listen to this song and think, why?
Like, where's the story?
Yeah. Why do we want to keep listening after we started listening? Like, we get it, bro. You have 8 bits. I've tried. All right. I'm such a mom. I'm like, this is me being mean, right? But yeah, AZ. I mean, you're just like do a little more of everything. Even if you're using presets still, like try and find cooler presets. Like this is one thing. Like if you're just getting started with sound design, it's okay to reverse engineer presets. It's a really good way to learn. And sometimes like your favorite producers or sample makers and sound designers will put out these like free packs of their own personal presets. Sometimes you could just load those in and just reverse engineer and just say, hey, you know what, like that's why this sound is a little bit more timbrely interesting than mine. So no shame doing that. I would do that for sure. We're gonna move on to Quansil. And what was Quansil's concern today, Nathaniel?
Does the track feel boring or too repetitive at some point?
All right, so let's go. Some really nice atmospherics and nostalgia here. Natty, do you have a monologue today? I haven't heard you monologue in a while. I'm starting to miss it.
Well, for this one, I think that you have all the right pieces. You're just not letting each individual one shine enough. I mean, you need to start spacing everything out a little bit more so that then things like that vocal sample, for example, it's kind of doing the same thing the entire track, which means you don't need it there all the time. Let it fade out a bit and have something else take its place. You also have for drum and bass, there's also not a huge amount of bass happening in the song at this present, but I think it's because you've cranked everything else so loud that you've almost lost perspective on the feel of the track. You've got all these really high and mid-rangey sounds, and it's sort of like overwhelming your own ears when you're trying to actually process and mix this down. So I'd start again with the mix down a bit here. Go to your drums and your bass, make sure that they're in relation to each other in an appropriate manner so that those are hitting us in the head, and then start sculpting everything else around those things rather than the other way around. I think it'll achieve what you're trying to achieve, which is sort of this Rocket League Monster Cat drum and bass vibe, I think.
Yeah.
And, I guarantee most of those people or their engineers will also start from the drums and the bass outwards.
Yeah, I also agree with the super loud comment. I mean, if you can see the waveform here in the little window, it's very sausage. So if it looks like a sausage, it needs a little bit of backing off, and especially because you don't really have an intro. I think that, even if you do get super loud like this in the drop, if you at least ease us in with a little bit of like some of that ambience that you had near the end was really nice, but the intro was just, there wasn't really much of an intro. It was very like abrupt. It just kind of slams you in the face and it's so loud. So it's just kind of intense to have at once. And then because you have that intensity right off the bat, it's not, going anywhere. And somebody in the chat said it was kind of boring. I think that it's just because of that. It's just because you kind of tired people out in like the first couple of bars, And so after that, they were sort of a little bit numb, they being me, I don't know, royal we, and then they can't feel it anymore. Aiden, what were your feelings on that?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are both saying. I think like for me, the track started really strong and I was like enjoying all the different sounds I was hearing, but I do think there could have been maybe some more automation or changing up of the drums, the way they were compressed or distorted, just morphing those drums as the track goes on so we don't really get tired of listening to it. I think there could also be like a maybe a better or a stronger main melody. I think the piano was doing that at some point near like the 2-minute mark, but it was a little low in the mix and I don't know, maybe you could experiment with other sounds than the piano, but otherwise I think the drums sounded really cool and it just needs maybe some more automation and morphing.
Yes, and definitely dynamics. Like you can have more minimal parts. You can sort of have. It's funny, like when you watch like a jazz improv group, there's always this part where they do this, right, where they just want to like show off the band. So it's like so and so on the bass, so and so on the drums, and you can kind of do that in your song with like, hey, check out this like rolling bass here, and then like check it out and take turns highlighting those elements so that people can really appreciate them, and then that also gives you room. Space, things like that. Sweet. All right, we have a cue jumper, first cue jumper of the night, Stasis Stigma. Did they have any requests for specific feedback, Natty?
They did indeed. Sorry about the YouTube link, but this is going on my next album. How is the instrumentation choice? Where would the track use more excitement, either compositionally or in the mix? I'm paying for the mega feedback.
Mega feedback. I need to make
expectations are high there then.
All right, so the finest deluxe feedback only for Stasis Stigma.
We'll try our best.
All right. Some super deluxe YouTube video psychedelic. I enjoyed that part of it. I think the whole imagery is very cohesive. And, this is not my usual genre, but I do appreciate the cleanliness of the space that you created. Like everything had a lot of space to be there. Nothing was really clashing with anything else. The only thing that for me was really sticking out was like quite literally was the snare. The snare was just a little bit strange sometimes. Like there were parts of the song near the end where it seemed like almost like the wrong genre of snare, and then like parts where it was okay. So I think maybe you have like a few different snares going on, and just maybe some of them are not cohesive. When I started producing, I used to use so many different layers of drums. I don't know why. I was just like, I thought I was being really complicated. And I think that the more experience, and this happens to a lot of producers, you get like simpler and simpler, because it was cracking me up. I'm actually working on this album right now where I have some projects that I started years ago. And so I still was doing things like that. So there's this one where I'm just like, why do I have 8 different snares, like alternating and layering? Like, why did I think that was cool? Like, no wonder I was having like EQing issues, and like this was not working, and this other part was like, I'm not saying don't layer your drums. I'm not saying that at all. But be careful when you do it, and make sure that they all cohesively blend together and tie back together when you are done with that. So I think for me that was the one thing that sort of startled me out. I also think that the vocal was a little bit loud. Like the breakdowns were almost like just super loud compared to the drops. So this could also be like over limiting or compression on your master, but it's just the breakdowns were like so intensely loud that the drops almost seemed diminished, when actually I kind of want them to like pulse out of me, and I want them to be a little bit bigger. But I mean, I saw from the graphic that this was like 30 songs in 30 days. So I mean, for being made in a day, I think that's super impressive. Aiden.
Oh yeah, wow. Okay. One day then that changes kind of the feedback, I guess, but I guess it would behoove you to go back and edit and make some more changes if that's what you want to do. So, yeah, I thought the vocals were a really cool texture throughout the whole song, but I thought the synth and the breakdown and in the later part of the song could be warmer or darker, something to fit those vocals a little bit better, and just kind of like hug them instead of being kind of bright and harsh. And then I also agree with you, Isha, that those that snare I think could be different, or it's too loud or something.
Yeah, for sure. Natty.
I mean, I think that part of the problem with the vocals is the way they're chucking the limit run out. It's creating a resonance that's actually quite hard to listen to. And that's definitely worth looking at, unless you want to fatigue all your audience or make them question their hearing. The other thing I think as well is you could have gone a bit further with some of the pulsing gate effects that you had towards the end of the track on those vocal samples. Because the only time you really change them up, because otherwise they kind of play basically the same the whole way through the song. And I was almost waiting for it to open out and get really, really weird. In the sort of like mimicking the other arps and the bass sound with those vocals, where it's like...
Are you a goat, Natty?
That was a bass line. It sounded like a bass line.
Let's make
but I mean, that's that would probably also help unify the disconnect that's present sometimes between your layers, and how they're sort of all doing different things. But if you start implementing more rhythmic similarities at places, then you sort of say, okay, this is actually part of the same piece and it's deliberate.
Gotcha. Yes, I agree. Natty, you didn't
Straight Paul Oakenfield transport. Yes, exactly.
Natty, who's next? You didn't give me the next one. Is it Cross Color? I think it's Cross Color.
It is indeed, yep.
All right. And what specific feedback is our dear friend looking for today?
It was... I think I got the low end mix right this time, but I'd appreciate feedback to confirm it.
Oh, okay. So this is probably one of those tracks that has come in and out of our feedback jam. All right, let's check it out. RGB by Cross Couloir. All right. So it's so tricky to answer questions about low end in this kind of music for me because usually, there, as is the case here, it's like kicks are the low end, right? It's like these 808 kind of kicks. And so, I mean, the good thing, I guess, about producing like this is you don't have to sidechain anything, right? You just have like one source for this. But I don't know. I'm a bass head, so I'm kind of the worst person to ask about this, but I do think that it is clear. It's not like interfering with anything. It doesn't feel like there's noise. So I would say that I think you got it right. I'll let other people comment, but there was an interesting comment in the chat. Somebody saying, I think the kick is a bit out of tune. And so the thing is, since the kick is also your bass, I might actually go in and say that if you turned it up by like either a semitone or like half a semitone, it might actually sit better because it sounds like it's just a little bit flat compared to the rest of your mix. So it'll be interesting since this is your bass timbre if you shift it up, if your mix is still the way that you want it, because sometimes that can happen, but that's personally what I would say. Aiden, are you a secret trance head?
I'm a big Detroit techno head, and this is giving me some vibes of that, so it's really interesting. Those like choppy vocal stutter effects in the beginning were super cool. I think you could, I think they're right in here right now too, maybe in the background, so I like that you keep bringing them back, and I think the sounds are mostly nice here. I do agree with the bass. I think if you tuned it so slightly maybe down or something, you could get something that drives a little more and is in tune as well, so your whole melody and harmony makes more sense. And then also I think for the percussion on this song, all of your hats and tiny little perk sounds, they could have some evolving effects on them, like phaser or flanger. I think that would lend really well to this kind of trance techno vibe. Maybe some echo, reverb, something that evolves over time.
It's all about evolving over time. Natty.
I mean, I think even just playing around with the filter cutoff on that sort of, it's like a form. The bass, weird bass sound is like a formant shifting thing. It'd be nice to hear some of those vowel sounds evolve. I think that would be interesting. But also, I was kind of waiting in some places. I know it's techno and they avoid changing as many things as possible for as long as possible, and that's kind of the whole point. But I was hoping, I mean, obviously everyone's been talking about how the kick is out of tune. I mean, I feel like you could in some ways get that to work deliberately, but I was also feeling like it would be nice to occasionally have that release where it just sort of pitch shifts itself up a little bit and then comes back down. You know, just sort of really a break point. And I know it's not a strict techno trope. It's like, you know, you're sort of verging off into your own territory there if you do something like that. But, I mean, I think it would have been really cool. And
Yeah. Cookie said, feels like a live audition where the DJ is throwing in elements. And yeah, I do think that instead of just bringing things in and out, there's always creative ways. My friend Ben Cantil, who was the previous professor at Berkeley Valencia for Ableton and music production before I took that position from him, he always used to say, gain or volume is the most cop-out thing to automate, like, and he'd just be like, don't do that. And that was one of the first things he would teach his students, that he sort of passed on me to point out, was like, yeah, you can just automate the volume or automate a filter, which is in a way is automating the volume, but there's so many other things that you can do. You can automate tails of reverbs and sizes, and you can create aliasing. You can use Endless Smile and have a one-stop EDM filter shop. You can use outboard gear. You can do resampling. There's just, you know, volume is sort of a cop-out. So I think you can do more than just bringing things in and out, and I think that's maybe what Cookie means when it says it's just like a DJ, because that's basically what a DJ would be doing, is just like bringing it in and out. So little bits of pizzazz on those little transitions, I think, would be my opinion. But I am definitely not, you know, I'm not. This is not my genre, but I do think that you can still do those things. Yeah.
I think so too.
Okay. Oh, next up we have Henjo. No specific feedback, but Henjo looks like a very nice person. I gotta say, just like look at this.
Nice.
Look at this. Well, this is your entertainment for the night. There's a massive cockroach crawling along my MIDI controller. And I don't know where it went, so I'm just going to sit cautiously for a while.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot of roaches in Spain. Like, it's weird. In the US, if you have cockroaches, it's like you live in a nasty motel. Like, they're just not around, right? But in Spain, there's just here, and especially if you live on the first floor like I do, they just come up in the... Yes, that roach is coming back to me. However... I still managed to enjoy the tune, and I will say that it passed the peripheral test, which is basically what I was accidentally doing for you because I was distracted by this roach. But that being said, if anything was sticking out in your mix, it would have stuck out to me then, and everything sounded really nice. I loved the melodies. I do not love this cockroach. I'm gonna let Aiden step in here.
Catchy and had a nice balance between its verses and choruses. I thought the last chorus could have used maybe a little bit more sidechain. Maybe you can play with that. And then also, when we started this track, there was like a weird kind of low-end click that was really far back in the mix, but that might be like a kick with some sort of echo on it. So if you do have that, maybe you could filter out the low end out of that echo, so the kick isn't getting replayed in the background. Other than that, I thought it was pretty solid. It's like good summer vibes, cracking back a Corona while you sit on your yacht kind of vibes. Back to you.
Oh, wow. Sounds like you have a good
You have
summer.
a yacht, Aiden?
I have 3, yeah.
Different genres for each one. Like, I feel
Yeah,
like
one is for one is rave only.
Natty.
And I think that's far as commercial house tracks go. It's a very successful example of it. Zine was saying that they weren't too keen on the deep or pitched vocals, but that's quite a common trait for these sort of... I mean, it's not a hybrid track as such, but it's definitely influenced by deep house, where the sort of darker vocal processing is very, very common. So, I mean, that's definitely a personal choice. And I don't mind that sort of vocal processing because it allows you a lot of leeway to sculpt everything else around them and add more exotic flourishes in the processing and whatever. So it can be quite fun. This would definitely be the sort of track where if you were to release it, you probably would have an extended mix version for the DJs.
Definitely.
It's like it wants to be DJ'd, but obviously you wouldn't be able to do that in the current pop song length that you've given. So I mean, definitely consider that if you haven't already. I mean, good job otherwise. I can't really think of anything else useful.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty ready for release if you ask me. Even cockroaches didn't stop me from enjoying that song. So I think it passes that test. Right on. We got Jinzu up next. Gosh, Nathaniel with the Foley. Oh my god.
My window is closed as well. How does...
It's like Formula One going on like outside your house. It's actually rumbling my sub pack. Did Jinzu have any specific feedback?
Just a second. They just asked us to let them know what we think. 3 love hearts, all cute. We love you too.
Aww.
Please don't skip a word. I know you've been hurt before. Save me as all you speak. I'll be there in time. Don't you leave. I know you've been hurt. I've been doing worse. Please don't leave. I know you've been hurt. I've been doing worse. Please don't leave. I'm stuck all alone. Golden blood and bones. Heart gon' turn to stone. Stuck here with my own. I don't wanna know why you left this stone. Bone stuck short and tall. Fixed it up on one call. Why'd you hit it? Stop, skip a while. I know you've been hurt before. Save me is all you speak. I'll be there in time. Don't you leave. I know you've been hurt. I've been doing worse. Please don't leave. I know you've been hurt. I've been doing worse. Please don't leave. Jizzle.
Oh my God. What just happened? I couldn't even take the hearts off. I was like paralyzed, my soul. That was so beautiful, and it was really, 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 really nice. I mean, I think it's like the first half of it for me was like pretty perfect. I do think the mix could be like, it could be mastered a little bit, you know, like the mix is actually pretty good. Maybe could be brought up and clarified, maybe a little bit more air over everything, but the kind of dubsteppy part in the second, the sub pack gives me a little window into sort of lows, like ones that you can't even really hear. And there was definitely a little bit of looseness in the low end between some of the kicks and the bass. So I would go through, do a little bit of surgical cleanup on the low end, and maybe just, this is a creative choice, but I think that you don't necessarily need those fast wobbles. They kind of like break the spell for me. Like I'm kind of under this spell. I'm swaying from side to side, and I really like it. So I mean, I just want to keep being in that spell. So my suggestion might be like, you know, take those cool sounds and wobble them slower and kind of glide them. So it's kind of like whoa, instead of like whoa, 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 right? So I would just play with that personally a little bit. I don't know, but I'm definitely, I know Aiden loves this vibe too. So what did you think of that one?
Yeah, this is actually my friend Byron that I told he should submit to. I showed him Ableton like a couple years ago, or maybe a few years ago at this point, I don't remember, and by now he's like making these awesome rap EDM hybrid music, and it's pretty sick. So yeah, I agree. I think those wubs could be a little like vibier and slower instead of more kind of dubsteppy, unless like you want to really like dive into that dubsteppy area and like make those high-end synths way sharper and with, you know, more like crazy sound effects. You could go in that direction, but it would be like a drastic change, I think. I thought like when those drums come in the beginning of the rap verse, like the beginning of the first verse, sorry, I thought it was super cold. Those drums sound great. I think the bass line could be a little funkier and a little glitchier, like the hi-hats. Like you could use some of the MIDI data that you use with the hi-hats and try to match that up rhythmically with your bass line. I think that would be kind of cool. And then I also thought in the drop, the drums there could be a little tighter, or could use some effects, some like time-based effects. But yeah, the vocals were great. I thought the mix was pretty solid, like very solid. I'm impressed. Very nice.
Nice. Welcome, Aiden's friend. Nadia, what did you think of that?
I mean, Aiden pretty much said everything that was both said a lot of stuff that was agreement in the chat as well. I mean, James Slack compared it to Flume, Some Minds vibes, and thinks it's great. Although he was hoping for the drums to be a little bit more snappy, which I think is probably a little bit in line with your suggestion there, making the drums a little bit more vibrant in the chorus. I mean, I don't really feel like I have anything else worth adding, so good job.
Excellent. Please keep sending stuff in. This is, I mean, definitely, we're all biased. This is why I bring in friends, and it's not just feedback from Alicia, because we all have our tastes. But that is definitely my thing. So I love that, and I love listening to that kind of stuff. To keep going and keep doing this combination, I think it's super, super cool. And to be compared to Flume is amazing, but I mean, it's definitely true. All right, so probably in a sharp contrast from that, our next submitter, Zine, usually just asks to get roasted and sends memes. So why don't you read the comment, Nathaniel?
Drop is messy, but I don't really know how to fix it. So yeah, also mixing is just a wreck, but you wouldn't expect that from me at this point, wouldn't you? I mean,
you would
maybe
expect
too
that.
mean on yours. Yeah,
I mean, I think Zine is here for the memes, so it's all good. We love you, Zine, and we will roast you heartily and happily, and thank you for being here. Okay, we have just caught me off guard. I didn't expect it to end that fast. I took a bite of snacks. We have Versace, My Money. I don't know. Natty, what did you think of that classic composition?
So I mean, I've actually commented on this piece already, because Zine's been popping up in my DMs a fair bit lately. So I mean, obviously I don't think there's been any changes since the last time I heard it, and I suggested start experimenting with things like varying your string articulations, so then you can actually start making more variety in space that way, because very static strings aren't always super interesting to listen to, especially when they are taking up a lot of your space. It's also a bit difficult with this one right now, because it's like you've just thrown a lot of elements together that are cool and kind of interesting in their own right, but they've not quite yet been molded to fit each other. But I mean, that's not really a bad place to be in to start a track either. So I mean, I wouldn't take any of that as criticism as such, as saying just keep experimenting, because it's, well, one, it's fun, and two, because I think that you could make something worthwhile out of this atmosphere that you are creating here. I mean, it's definitely moved away from the advertising vibe a fair bit now, which is good.
Advertising and not so car commercial. There's definitely an interesting, like, kind of like steel drum tropical sort of mashed with kind of like moodier indie sort of stuff. For me, I would say just keep making tracks. You say you've only been doing it for a few months. I would say just keep going and don't even worry too much yet, because there's definitely some mix issues with the balance of the drums, and especially like the low end of the kick and the placement of the kick and snare. But like, just keep doing it, and in the meantime, use reference tracks to mix. Okay, like that is the biggest, most helpful thing. And one of the plugins I always recommend, it's expensive but it goes on sale a couple times a year, is Adapter Audio Metric AB. It's just a little plugin that you load on your master, and it lets you load in reference tracks so that you can skip that half second of muting and unmuting. Because, you know, you like listen and then you're like, oh, I got to solo this and now I got to listen to the reference track. With this, you can just like flip and A/B it. So there's probably similar plugins that do this as well, but I would just recommend like using that, because I still do that too. I mean, you've been working on something for a while, you don't really have a perspective on what it sounds like anymore. Like you need to compare it to something and balance. So play around with that and just learn from that. You know, Aiden, do you have any like tips for people that are just super fresh at this point?
I agree. I think experimentation is the best way to do it. I think it's to learn the program that you're using and to just like if you are new and you're serious about getting better, I think you should, if you can, sit down every day for like 30 minutes to an hour and just load up a new thing in your program, whether it be an audio effect, an instrument, a sample, and just work with that for a while, just messing with it. I don't know if I can curse. I was about to, but just messing with it a bunch. And yeah, hopefully, you know, you get more comfortable with it, and then you will keep listening to music, understanding form and structure. And I think you'll be on a good path there.
Absolutely. I mean, we sort of whatever. Our guests often do it, so I generally I have this habit of like teacher mode, but you know, I definitely swear a lot. Yeah, I think you're doing well. Don't just enjoy the process. That's what it's all about at this point. Next up, we have a weird link. I hope this isn't going to infect my computer. I don't know what my XT is. And
it's apparently some sort of recorder app website, which at least sounds relatively legit.
All right, I'm seeing.
They do have a comment if the file loads. They said pretty far along, looking for thoughts on the mix, but any and all feedback is appreciated. And their artist name is Everything Else.
Right. So
you've got Flume, you've got Avicii, you've got Calvin Harris, and everything else.
Well, they may have to give me their link was Everything Else. Like they need a normal link, I think. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to load. What I'm getting I'll show you what I'm seeing. It's just a logo in the middle of a page, and it's got a title, but it doesn't want to play. So, if there's any way you can give me, like, or help me figure out, like, can I download this file, save as?
Is there like an? I mean, and maybe it's like you say your link. Perhaps there's another bit it needs to be for like private sharing.
Yeah,
it
doesn't let me download it. So let's move on to. Do we have another one ahead? Is our queue that short today?
We have more ahead. We've got Uvo back next for another round with Deviants. I'll just send that to you now. And right. How do you like that dubstep?
How do you like that dubstep? And yeah, we will come back to you. Everything else, if you can somehow get us a link that we can open. I don't know why it just does not open on a Mac on Safari, which is what I have to use to run the music, etc. So we're going to move on to Uvernut, and we will come back to you. All right. All right, well, I will step in here and say, for your first dubstep tune, I mean, good job. My first dubstep tune sounded like the trash can sound when you drag something to the garbage on your computer. So, you know.
I like this bit.
Yeah, and some of the sounds you've chosen have like a really nice stereo kind of satisfying. Like some of the sounds are really cool.
Yeah.
But the intro is the part I would say like do it again, because the track is actually way better than the intro. Like when I first heard the intro, I was like, oh, I don't think I really like this, and then the track kicked in and I was like, okay, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. I think it's just the intro, the sound is not particularly nice to be like the focus, and it needs some atmosphere. So it seems like you're just starting out. So just play with, how do you tell a story with sound? Like you can have atmospheric Foley sounds, you could have like a quiet pad, you could have something that gets the listener ready to enjoy the journey, as Nathaniel likes to say. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I think I was at least my 5th dubstep tune before I got as good as this one. So keep going and keep learning, because dubstep is also super technical. Like it takes a long time to really pull that one together. Aiden.
Yeah, this sounds sick for a first dubstep track. I think that acid bass sounds awesome. I think that's the coolest part of it, like how screechy it can get. I think it sounds nice. I think the drums maybe could use some more variation, maybe for your next track, or if you're going to keep working on this one, you could add some more percussion, things that evolve over time, of course. And then also you've got a lot of like these little sound designed synth ear candy in between every 4 bars or whatever. You could pan those to the sides, different sides of your headphone, to give yourself a more stereo atmosphere for your dubstep track. But yeah, for the first one, that was pretty great.
Nat?
I think your next move would be to start varying up the pacing of your wubs. Basically, because you've got your kick and your snare, and they're doing the typical dubstep things, and pretty much anything around that is fair game. You don't have to keep going the like, you can have one bit extend out a bit further into the next bar. You could have another bit shorter. And you can have it so you're doubling it or tripling it or whatever, and then you can start playing around with your LFOs and your envelopes, so that then you're blurring the lines between what the tempo is telling us you're doing and what you're actually doing.
Good point.
I mean, and just experiment, have fun with it, basically. Go as weird as you want. Also, maybe have a look at trying to, in post, if you render out your wubs, try pitch correcting your wubs afterwards a little bit, because I think that would take some of the atonality out of them that doesn't actually benefit what you're trying to do here.
Very wise words, Nathaniel. You should be everybody's dubstep teacher.
I mean, I barely even attempted to make dubstep, so I mean, I'd be a terrible dubstep teacher.
Well, to quote Endiment, aka Cross Couloir, for me, a classic dubstep track has got to have at least one moment of wub 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 bub 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 bub. All right, we're gonna play Lengthy, and then everything else is saying that they submitted a SoundCloud link, so we'll put them up next after that. Did Lengthy have any specific feedback requests? Natty?
No, they just said, hope you like it.
All right.
We hope you will.
Thank you, Lengthy. I did actually enjoy that quite a lot. That was a lot of fun. It went very well with my little cherry psychedelic Volta world here. And look, here's some atmosphere for all those of you we gave feedback to. There's some rain, some thunder.
It'd be nice to hear that earlier in the track.
Yeah, because I think again with this one, the intro didn't sell me as much as it did when it came in. So maybe it feels like your outro is quite refined and finished, and maybe your intro can have a little bit more of that atmosphere. But I love the vibe of this. Like, it has really good energy, and you say that it was fun to create in the comments of the page, so I can hear that, which is really nice. Aiden, what'd you think?
Yeah, such good energy. I totally agree. I think if you put that atmosphere at the beginning, that would open this up really nicely. I think I just read this comment about that classic rave sound for that piano. I agree. I think that piano sounds fantastic. Like, so nice and almost tinny and thin, sitting right on top of that like smooth bass. Thought the mix was pretty tight. I do think there could be like some sort of top line melody with some smooth synth, sort of like a theremin or something really smooth like that. But I think it could use that just to get us going a little more. Other than that, I thought the chords sounded great. Drums were tight. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
Nat?
I mean, I think the overall atmosphere is fun, and I especially liked how you chose to end it. It's nice when you actually get a proper outro to a song. I mean, I think outros are somewhat underappreciated. A lot of people just sort of say, okay, my song's done now, bye. So that was nice. While I can appreciate what you're trying to do with the rave piano, I think that until the bass comes in, it's almost too tinny. It could do with a little bit more of the low end back into that piano, and then you sort of multi-band it out with, or dynamic EQ or whatever, out after when the bass comes in to make space again. Because it just sort of sounds really hollow when it's all we're focused on. I think the other thing for me, it would have been nice to have a section that doesn't follow the same chord progression, because you use the same thing across the entire track, and it'd be nice just to have at least, I don't know, 8 or 16 bars somewhere that says, okay, this is inverted, or it's going in a different direction now, and then you come back and reintroduce this back to your main home base chord progression that you've got going on for the rest of the song. It's just sort of maybe a case of just going over everything and saying, okay, if I do tweak this, I can save the other file. It's got a version that I know works. If I just go a slightly different route, do I like it more?
Yeah. Enderman saying the piano was too tinny but felt better when the bass came in. Yeah, I think that's another important thing to do with your tracks is, like, sometimes you have to remember that instead of just automating fun stuff, you have to automate things like EQs depending on like what's in and what's out, because maybe the piano needs to have more low end when the bass is out, right? And then you can automate that EQ to cut once it comes in. You can also like sidechain dynamic EQ. That's like one of these fun favorite things I like to do is just like sidechain a dynamic EQ's frequencies so that when one comes in, it will duck the other. So in this case, I wouldn't do that. I would just like manually do it because it's just like sectional. But when it's like, say, different synths, you can sometimes make room for them by sidechain dynamic EQing them against each other, which is pretty cool. All right, Lengthy, nice vibes. Thanks for all of that. Next up, we have everything else getting back in the queue with a SoundCloud link. So that other link, I mean, I gotta say, it looked very weird. It looked like something I shouldn't click on. So hopefully my computer doesn't just redirect to like some kind of strange site. I mean, because I've never done that before or anything. Okay, so any feedback on this one? Everything else? Oh, we had Rags jump the queue, didn't we?
Anything else first? Data says pretty far along, looking for thoughts on the mix, but any and all feedback is appreciated. They also apologized for the site not working, but that's not your fault. We didn't know there was an issue with Safari in it. Like, it's hard to tell these things in advance, so don't worry about that.
All right. Well, we'll put Rags in right after this because this is mix up. Let's get it going. Everything else, no worries. We want to hear it. Wow, that was super original. Like the rhythmic patterns are definitely like very unexpected, but I really like the synth spaces. I really like this like end part especially, and I think that actually got better as it went along. Just in the beginning, I felt like the percussion was a little awkward in its patterning, but later on in the song, it sat really well. So, I mean, it's definitely different and unique. And it kind of almost reminds me of like some of the experimentation stuff that you do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It reminds me a bit of like an avant-garde LA beat scene type beat. I really like appreciated all those like weird rhythms that the kicks and snares and hi-hats and your top synths were in. I think it could have maybe benefited from one of those elements being very straight so we can like groove a little bit easier along to it. So maybe like I was thinking you could have the bass line be a little dirtier, a little, I guess, bassier, a little lower maybe. And so something that kind of just stays stagnant throughout whatever, an A section and then a B section maybe. But that could, yeah, make it easier to groove along to as everything else is like kind of happening around in this very atmospheric textural kind of way. And it was super cool. Like you had some wild percussive stuff going on in the top end and wild pitch shifting, formant shifting. It was crazy. A lot of that stuff is really cool to listen to.
Agreed. Natty, how did you feel about it?
I mean, in some ways, I'm going to effectively contradict Aiden here. You were saying, make the bass more static. I mean, maybe introduce a sub-layer or something. Maybe the bass was kind of played too straight. I mean, there's all these other bendy, warped sounds behind it. And you never once use a glide, legato sort of sound on your bass. It just sort of does one thing, and I kind of feel like it'd have been fun just to have these moments of boom, boom.
Clip that to Cross Color.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean now. No, you make a great point.
I mean, that's also, I mean, generally it is always hard to tell. It's like, is it avant-garde or just messy? But I mean, I feel like everything generally does sound deliberate. Like it all comes in within a sort of there's a regular pattern to when new elements are introduced, and it all does at least sonically fit together. I mean, it definitely isn't for everyone, and I'd feel like it'd be better in a more soundtracky context than an average casual listening one. But I mean, that's no bad thing as well. It's sort of functionalist music would effectively, you find the right context for a piece, and then that means it's successful. I mean, there's like, Brian Eno and his music for airports kind of deal. There's if you know what your target is and you've met it, and I feel like this does. It's very eerie, sort of spacey. Like things are nice, but they're off, and you don't know why. And that's a neat vibe, and it's certainly hard to capture in a way that is actually listenable. And this is listenable, so good job.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like, don't be afraid to take risks, because like it definitely is successful in catching people off guard and still being cohesive. It sounded like super purposeful, so I really liked it. Yeah, and then we're gonna move on with our all-time top donator, Official Rags. Big shouts out to you, man. You always keep it going and support. We love you. You're a great mod. You're a great person. I've had the pleasure of meeting Rags in real life. Exactly the same. Just super good vibes and energy. And Rags would be a great feedback guest, but is always at work during this. So big ups to putting us on in the background. We love you. And this is a track. Is there any specific feedback that Rags was looking for, Nathaniel? Did he say anything? I'm going to take that as a no. All right, let's check it out.
You have to give us the number. What is it? The tongue philosophers trust our priesthoods a guardian, and with their deaths they destroyed our greatest secret.
Ice drop for the summer, got bull in the black max. Drop shots, still waving they white flags. Got 'em up by the rope, still smoking them toe tag. I hate to do it to 'em. What a drag. 7 on my wrist, right now I'm leaking fluid. 30 in my hand, I'ma dilute it. Yeah, this ain't about nothing, won't dispute it. Yeah, back up on my BS, come included. Yeah, I don't think they ever really love me. No matter as long as the check ugly. When great things come, I'd rather not have attention. My horses hang higher than the suspension. 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 divided by 7. What is life though? What is life though? What is life though? 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 divided by 7. What is life though? What is life though? What is life though? 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 divided by 7. What is life though? What is life though? What is life though? 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 divided by 7. What is life though? What is life though? What is life though? Ice drop for the summer, got bull in the black max. Drop shots, still waving they white flags. Got 'em up by the rope, still smoking them toe tag. I hate to do it to 'em.
Oh, straight fire from Rags. Rags, I love this like kind of like spooky, moody, like the whole energy. I dig that side of the rap scene. So as usual, I think that your vocals, like you're still kind of hiding behind them a little bit when like you can really pump up that breathy, creepy thing. And I would actually like go more ASMR, you know, I would get a take of you like close up.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean? I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would do that, and then also like the rest of the track needs some high end elements. You know, it's got like a great murky, dirty bass. I'm not saying you have to be bright and sparkly, but you can be spooky and airy. You can have more breathing, more like 5K and up stuff, and obviously just maybe some more plucky or not plucky, like high clean elements of some kind. I mean, ideas.
I do have some ideas. This is a really, really cool like foundation. I think the mix could use a couple things to work on. Something in the vocal mix, you know, maybe a little bit more presence there needed, maybe some more compression maybe. But as far as the instrumental mix, like the sounds are super cool with the synths and even the drum sounds. I think the overall instrumental mix, again, could be brighter. And the whole track could be in your face more. I think you could put some more compression on those synths and brighten them up, even some more distortion if you want. For the kick was a little too loud, and maybe for the whole track, I might be mistaken, but it was a little loud. And then, you know, maybe something different for the outro. It just kind of was the beat, and then we stopped. But there's also, I want to mention, there is this Muramasa remix of this Kanye West song, and it does something very similar to the way your song started in the drop, and as soon as like the first verse started. So, you know, if you look that up, maybe you get a little reference from there.
Good reference. I love Muramasa. Natty.
So yeah, they said this song is a song about nothing. Sorry, my Google Sheets docs thing was like, nope, you're not getting to that comment again. So it took me a second. But I mean, so obviously I'm not going to analyze it lyrically if it's just meant to be a vibe, and this is a vibe. So that's cool and interesting, because we don't get many lyrical songs on this channel that are just there for the texture. I mean, I also liked a suggestion from Kyuki Cookie.
Cookie.
Sorry. Cookie.
Cookie Monster.
Mr. Cookie. Yum, 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 yum.
Nom, nom.
But they said, great vibe. I was kind of waiting for the UFO sound to do a modulation with a couple of octaves up. Actually, it'd probably been really cool to have the ding.
Please, somebody be clipping this all day. This is going to be a great track. So Rags is asking, how do you suggest approaching brightening when it's mostly low-end frequencies? And Aiden replied, I think you could distort, bring the volume up, compress the synths, make it the instrumental. I agree. Distortion is your friend. I mean, if you need to create harmonics, you know, what I usually do is kind of like a mental flow chart of like, what do I need to do next? It's like, do I need depth? Okay, then I need like stereo imaging and reverb. Or do I need amplitude? Okay, but do I need to create something that isn't there? That's when you go to harmonics and distortion, because that is pulling things out. I mean, you can use like comb filters. You can, like one of the most fun things I do when I show people how to use Vital is use filters, the comb filters that are tuned in semitones, because Vital does that. And you can actually put them and key track them, and you can create a playable sound just out of white noise and the comb filter key tracking. So distortion and using those harmonics can create new textures. But I would also like actually put in some high-end sounds, even just like spooky atmospheric ones is what I would do. Natty, do you have another comment?
No, nothing. I'm just laughing at the
chat
comments and
I
the
know
chat.
I know it's hilarious. So I'm gonna just like be a weirdo for a second, because we were just talking about Brian Eno. I wanna show you guys something. This is so, because for those of you who haven't been watching all the stuff with Matt Black and knowing about Cold Cut and the connection, Matt Black is the co-founder of this project, and he's half of Cold Cut and founder of Ninja Tune. And so one of the things that he gave me access to was a bunch of archives of like old videotapes of media. And one of the things that I found was basically Brian Eno being on like the first ever proto Zoom call with like a video phone in the 90s. And it's supposed to be a panel, and it's really hilarious. So I took this and I cut it together, because I was like, this just reminds me of like every Zoom call ever, except it's like 1997. So it's just so funny.
On video phone here, we have Brian Eno.
Getting in a sweat.
Can you hear us, Brian?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, right. There's a slight delay on that phone, so...
Sure.
Yes.
Hello, Roy.
Hi, yes. What's it like to be a telepresence?
Well, it's a pretty abstract experience, I must say. And since I know that what you can see of me is just the odd square of a sort of vaguely flesh-like colour, I should imagine it's fairly abstract for you as well. In fact, abstract and expressionless.
We have a question coming in from France. Could we have that? We have a question from France?
Hello?
Can't hear that. Can we have studio sound up a bit?
Can you hear me? This is Pascal. I'm very sorry, but there's a slight technical problem. Would you like to give me your question and I'll pass it to studio for you?
We're having another technical problem here. Could we just have the video phone up? Because
Look.
Brian is signalling to us.
Help, can't hear.
Another technical problem, Brian. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you when you speak, but there must be some kind of gate or something on here. It only opens up for the very loudest word.
Oh, I see. Right.
You know,
That's...
the loudest word in most people's conversation is very. Have you ever realised that?
Well, very, very, yes.
20 seconds or so, I hear very, very, very. So,
Right. I've got a message from Ireland over the earpiece.
Yeah.
Right, I'm on one, camera one, over there. Sorry, thank you.
Look at the
are
green
there any other
screening.
questions on the bridge at the moment?
It's so funny.
Right, we're just checking up there.
If Brian's just like, get me
No,
out.
we've lost that. Okay, right, we're not quite making this up as we go along. Right, could we have a message from Great Western College? Could we have that question? Hopefully over the studio.
Is it realistic to expect students at college to understand the technology?
Oh, yes, I mean, one hopes so. I have a message from Exeter online here. Can I have that? Exeter, you there? Not very far from here. No? They were there, they've gone. Maybe I could go back to. So, are they there? Brian?
I can hear you when you speak to me directly.
Well, that's because I'm sort of shouting
Wow.
down the little speaker here.
So interesting to see
I'm not able
this.
to make much of a contribution because I can't hear a thing other than you shouting and the occasional very.
Right, well, I apologise for that. But, thank you, Brian. I'm just going to go back to the bridge where we're receiving some calls in, I think.
The bridge,
Do we
like
have a
Star
call in?
Trek.
We have a call. We have another question, do we?
Wow.
From Exeter again.
Right.
Hello? Do we have a question, Exeter? No?
Anyways,
Oh my god.
I just had to cut that all together. It was just too much.
No-
but yeah,
Nothing's changed.
Nothing.
Nothing's changed.
I love that.
You can't hear me,
phone.
right? Send
Yeah.
help.
Please. So yeah, that was.
Maybe we should do a special like that where we just have a whiteboard each and we have to write out our comments and go.
Amazing. Next up, I guess. Sorry, this was just a little fun diversion for the evening. We have Voxen,
Voxen. And they do have a comment.
which is.
Took a month to work on trying to improve. Moved my workstation to a better room, and it's much easier to get a feel for the mix, but I'm still learning. Looking for any feedback on the overall mix and master. Still a work in progress, but want to show what I've been doing. Also, any tips on when to use a return, send, or not to? The intro and first verse mix is what I'm working on right now.
Okay, good.
Take
Oh, it's a big tune, my friend. I love this vibe. I'll let Aiden go first today.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll first answer that little question about when to use sends and returns, I guess. So I like to use sends and returns either for like very specific purposes, or for effects that I know I will be using across a lot of different tracks. So if I've got like 14 different vocal channels, I can use one send to make sure that all my echo is going into all my different vocals without having to have 14 different instances of that echo. That would be a lot more intensive on my CPU, and while it might give me more control, I think for a lot of applications you want your channels in a similar group like vocals to have the same effects across all of them, and you can do your more specific things in between. But I think that's an easy way to use returns to your benefit and to save CPU usage. So as for this song, I thought it was super cool. I think there's something missing for me in the melody, maybe in the second drop. I think by the end of the song, I get a little tired of the resonant synths going on in the high end, and it gets a little, I guess, muddy to me nearing the end. But I think it started strong, and the vocal effects were pretty cool. All like the chopping and gated kind of stuff I thought was cool, but yeah, I think there could be some more variety as the song progresses.
Yeah, agreed. And I also want some more carving out of space, you know, like it's a really beautiful wall of sound, but it still becomes a wall of sound at some point. And you need to, you know, what you can do is start to sort of mess with the endings of things, you know, and automate the reverbs. You could even do things with things like envelope followers to play around with the tensions between elements and the space that you can create between them. And you know, at this tempo, I think it's plenty of room to make that space, because you have so many beautiful things. I would love to hear some of them like ring out solo into silence before they drop back in again, personally. Natty, everyone likes your haircut.
Yeah, I appreciate all the compliments. Thank you, everybody. I have a great hairstylist guy at one of the local salon places. So I'm very lucky for that one. For this one, it's a very, very cool atmosphere. I mean, it reminds me a bit of folks like Rusty, who he may be a bit of a weirdo these days, but I mean, I like a couple of his albums quite a lot, so I mean, that's a compliment in this case. In a Green Language especially is a really nice album. And I think that I'm going to recommend something that I've recommended before, and that is to reference yourself. I mean, for a lot of your track, I felt like your bass is kind of subdued below everything else. But once you got into the second drop, it's almost like you figured it out there. Because it's a really nicely placed bass sound, and everything else is starting to sit a bit nicer and cleaner. So maybe use that as your starting point, and then go back and have a look at how everything else is sitting in relation to it, and just match them up to it. The other thing I was thinking is your second drop kind of goes on for too long with not much change. Maybe in the second half of it, just go really wild with distorting everything. You know, you've already got this wall of sound going, and that's neat, and you can sort of just then exaggerate that and just really make us feel this is no, it's not just a wall, but it's intense. And introducing extra harmonics through distortion and soft saturation and that kind of things are really good ways of doing that. And you can literally chuck it on every sound during that last segment, because you've effectively taken us through all this progression, and now this is your grand finale. This is the bit where you can really show off. And I think it when it's finished, it's going to be a really cool song.
Definitely. Just needs those little touches, but definitely good vibes. Next up, we have Cookie. Love having you. Nice image, nice Audius link. If I really love Audius, I definitely encourage putting your stuff in Audius, because SoundCloud definitely has this weird compressor that does weird things, and Audius does not compress, bro.
I wasn't gonna laugh, Kiki, but I mean, you said please don't laugh. It's meant to be a sausage spaceship. That's just great.
It's
Yeah.
Like, now you brought this on yourself. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have told us that. Now it's funny.
You know what? I wasn't gonna laugh at it, but that just made it really good. Sausage spaceship in in Barcelona, and I think in other places they have this thing called dick waffle, and it's shaped like that, and there's all these photos of tourists like posing with it. Yeah. Anyways, it's cool, man. I'm sure it's like great.
You gonna buy me some dick waffle?
All right.
Hey, happy Pride Month, guys.
Happy Pride Month. This is Cookie.
So I think everyone's on board joining you on your journey in your sausage spaceship, so that's always fun. You said something might have happened to the audio and the render, which is interesting. For now, right now, I feel like if anything is causing it, it's the reverb on your high-end synths. One of the things that might be worthwhile is going through and instead of taking off the lows from your reverb, maybe take off the highs. And just allow the actual core synth to occupy that space by itself. But whether that's actually just a glitch from your render or something that is there and you just haven't noticed because you've been working on it for a while, I'm not sure. The other thing I found interesting is an example of what would be called reification. Your bass line is super close to the Imperial March from Star Wars. And now I've said that, I'm sure a lot of people won't be able to unhear it. Everyone hear that now?
It's there.
Yes.
But I mean, it's obviously not. It's not actually the same, but like, it's sort of. But maybe that's also something worth playing into. Maybe go look at that piece and see how John Williams shakes up the melody and the progression of the full piece, and say, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to do exactly what John Williams did, but I mean, like, you know, see why he's doing what he's doing, and see whether you can adapt some of that sort of concept and vibe into your own track. Because I mean, I think that it's close to a really, really cool song. But because you kind of do the same thing with a lot of your bass notes throughout the whole track, it does get a bit samey. So I'm gonna pass on to Aiden now. Me and Isha have switched around this time around. Ooh.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think the sounds are really cool. I think that bass is, every time that bass growls and gets into a higher register of the frequency spectrum, I'm loving that. I think that could even be pushed a little further too, and you can go even further into the high end with even like a reverb tail on that, so that just kind of drifts off as you're going back down into the frequency spectrum and keeping that bass tight. I like the chords. I like the harmony of the song. I think there could be even more atmosphere in that first breakdown, some shimmery things in the top end, some like Foley, something like that. And then when we got into the second drop, I actually was like a little disappointed with our snare. I think it could have been a little tighter, a little punchier, but the rest of the drums sound great, I think, and the mix is pretty tight. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Lovely thoughts they are. I personally, I've heard a lot of your stuff now. I think that, you know, your strength is like your kind of modular, analog-y sort of ARP atmospheric parts. Like, I really love when you have those parts. When you came into that after in the first breakdown, I was like, yes, like it's like really warm and sci-fi, and a lot of your synths have this great analog sound. But I think that sometimes the balance of your drums and your bass and like your main sort of drop area, like, needs a little bit more pushing and pulling, and, you know, just bringing it a little bit more sort of forward in the mix to match that warmth and that balance that you have in the synth parts. So I really like those, and I kind of wanted them more in the intro. I wanted to kind of work my way into that emptier vibe instead of starting there and going into something more. I don't know, just it could just be a creative choice, but I really I like your atmospheres, and I think that more of them need to come out. And then just really, like, for me, drums and the sub, those are always like why I do 70 mixes, you know, like the first like 2-3 mixes I actually do stuff, and then after that it's just like kick it sub or vocal up at half a dB, vocal down. But just, you know, use reference tracks, as I said earlier, because that is really helping me when I've just been like deep in something for too long, and I think it sounds good, but then I actually play it next to something that I know sounds good, and I'm like, oh wow, like I've been mixing for, you know, sometimes if you work on one element, the volume creeps up a bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, my drums went away. Oops. So maybe that, I don't know how you work, but like that is a thing. It happens to me all the time. I finally solved this mix. I've kind of been working on little bits for weeks, just being like, oh, why does it sound like crap? Oh, I used a reference track. Wait, somehow the volume of my drums has just crept down and everything else has gone up, and now my drums are almost gone, but because I know the track, I'm still hearing them like ghost presence. So I think it's really valuable even just to refresh your ears. Like, reference tracks can be like the coffee beans, you know, when you've smelled too many things and you need to clean up again. So next up we got LMAO Jer, and did they want any specific feedback, Natty? Oh,
Just really anything, feedbacks, thoughts on it, anything would be amazing. Thank you.
okay. So let me just copy that link properly because SoundCloud spazzed out again. Fine. There we go. Well, that was lots of fun. I really enjoyed that. And I like that kind of anime sound. I was a big fan of like Cashmere Cat and Lido when they started, a few years ago, just bringing in that element. And I definitely hear a little bit of that here. I think that some of the piano chords, even though they're supposed to have that retro house sound, you could still like fatten them out a little bit, make them a little bit thicker, a little bit warmer. Some saturation might be a good way to do it. And let me just go back to. Oh, here's what I was gonna say. I love those scratches, but here's what I would do. I would take the whole channel with the scratches and move it forward just a little bit, so they're a little bit later, because they're a little bit ahead of the rest of the groove, and you have such a nice funky bass, like drum groove, that if you have the scratches kind of ahead the way they are, I think it would just be like, and I'm not talking moving them super late, like try like 20 milliseconds at first, try just something really small, but I think that they would just sit, because if you listen, they're just a tiny bit ahead, like, right? And it's kind of fighting, because you have like a nice pocket beat, and then you have the piano that's like on beat, and then you have this as before the beat. So you kind of have to you can strategically play these things against each other, but I think that because everything else fits so well, just move the scratches. That's just my weird 2 cents. I don't know, I didn't, if you could hear what I was talking about, but
Yeah, totally. I think that you're spot on there. I think those scratches are super cool and add to like the whole fun vibe, but yeah, I think they could be moved rhythmically a little bit just to make them fit into that pocket a little bit nicer. The trap breakdown I thought was really cool and unexpected, and just had some great sounding drums on there. I think like the kind of only thing I want to say is when we're in that electro part of the song, there is like a chord that hits on the first bar, and I think the synth used for that chord is much fuller sounding than the synths you're using for the chords for the rest of that electro section. So I think you could use that first chord, the chord that goes bum, and you could go bum 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 bum, something like that, just so that we have a little bit of a fuller sound in the electro part, and you already have a great sound for it. I think you could just use it more. That's my 2 cents.
So my thoughts here would be when you start getting really heavy with the sort of electro bits, I think that your hats and your snare are a little bit dry. And maybe even a little bit piercing. So maybe be careful there. Maybe I'd recommend actually testing those on like your phone speaker or something that often will distort that sort of frequency to hell, and you don't want it to. Just to sort of, but my headphones already emphasize that region, so it was a little bit piercing. The other thing is I've got some thoughts that suggest ideas for the scratches as well. I mean, I feel like they're almost occupying a vocal range. And maybe it'd be cool to find a couple of samples. I mean, you can go full kawaii and find some Japanese samples, and then literally vocode them in. Incorporate them into the scratches, because I think it's kind of like it wants to be saying something that we can sort of barely understand anyway, but it's a sort of like it's not atonal, but like this would sort of help it fit in with what all the melodic elements that you have going around it a little bit more, because the human voice is inherently attractive.
people like hearing other people talk. It's kind of just the whole thing. And I think that would take your scratches from being something that's just sort of noise to something that sort of tickles that little itch that's in the back of the head. It says, ooh, I think I recognize this is someone speaking. And isn't that friendly?
Isn't that indeed? What
I
a
love
love.
that. It's a great suggestion.
Very.
So it was a fun track. Keep going.
Keep going. And we are going to keep going. Actually, it's 11. I guess it's time for plugin of the week.
Yay.
Plugin of the week. Plugin of the week. Plugin of the week. All right, so the plugin of the week is actually not a plugin, but a series of plugins. So it's going to be the Polyverse plugins, which is Infected Mushroom. If you're not familiar, Infected Mushroom is a psytrance and kind of experimental music act. Where's my mouse? Keep going. I'm losing my mouse. Let me get very weird. The screen share is doing something. Let me switch back. All right, we're gonna.
Mouse, where is it gone?
All
Will
right.
it appear again?
Okay, I found it. Cool. All right, so they have a bunch of different plugins, including Gatekeeper. Of course, it's pulling it on my other screen. There we go. So Gatekeeper is really cool because it's a rhythmic gate, and it's just like, here's some presets, so you can basically just gate anything. And I really like this for doing like fast textures. So sometimes when you don't want to add like more elements to things, but you need something, I'll use like noise and put this on top. So my mouse is being very, very weird right now. Sorry. All right, so let's like actually hear what this is like without it. This is just again from my sample pack because can't get copyright struck. It's just one of my loops. And it's got like stereo, so it's not just volume gating, right? It's like amp, panning. And so you can just be creative with it. It's got a lot of different shapes that you can draw. So I really like this for that reason. It's probably the one I use the most. And then they have these like MIDI controlled ones like Manipulator. They do these kind of vocoded things, and you can control them with MIDI notes. So the same thing with this other one called I Wish. Basically, if you want to set up something like this in Ableton, you just make a new, God, this mouse thing is distracting me. You just make a new MIDI track, and then you just send the MIDI to the channel, and it'll allow you to select. And a lot of these are MIDI control plugins, so I can send MIDI to Manipulator now, and now we can play. So every time I hit a key, it's like, and you can have obviously, so you can play like resonant arps on top of. Almost like just vocoders, right? And you can edit different things, like it's all very like psychedelic weird stuff. And then I'm gonna send it to I Wish, which is, and I actually used these a lot when I was making the loops in my sample pack to make some of the more like crazy rhythmic affected ones, because Infected Mushroom, that is kind of their signature. They have this like vocoded rhythmic. So you can just straight up like get weird and play melody.
Alicia, become dial-up.
And then the last one is less weird. It's a reverb called Comet, and I've talked about this before. Like it's just a really weird creative reverb because it has like 5 different settings, and you can morph between them, and you can automate the morph between them, which gives you this really weird, noisy things. So I can just go in here and like automate the preset morph a little bit, and you just get like the. Right, it's giving you this very weird, like floaty. So I really like that one too. So yeah, Polyverse, they're cheap. They're not super expensive plugins, and you're supporting like a small company that does really cool stuff. So yeah, they're all very awesome. Oh, who's next? We got Hai Chi up in the queue. For once, I'm not submitting a jungle track. Is that the only feedback comment that they have?
That is indeed all they've told us, which, interesting. I wonder what it is then.
All right. That was a super, super nice nodder. Natty, why don't you go first on this one?
I mean, in some ways, it's an interesting track. It wants to be a bit of a boom bap track, like an old school hip hop track, and whatever that was. In other ways, it's like it's almost chill steppy, and I feel like that influence is especially apparent in your percussion choice. So you've got using very, very snappy sounds, but I mean, I also feel like that clicky snare thing is almost too snappy, but it's almost like I feel like you could get away with it if you leave the higher frequency parts of it to the sides rather than in the middle. Like if you start parallel processing it a bit, so that we're not so that we get the more subdued element in the middle, and then you can mess about with effects and have the high end bit more spaced out and echoing out into your song atmosphere-y, vibey bits, because I mean it kind of got to the point where I was all I was focusing on, which is a weird thing to do when everything else, if I paid attention to everything else, is also lush and nice, and I really liked some of the sort of brass sounding synths that are sort of all warped and warm and chill, and I feel like
Yeah, I just I want to focus on those bits more, and right now I'm not.
Yeah, no, I really like the vibe of this. I think it's super like perfect and this like chill thing. It kind of depends on what you want to do with it because as like a background like really good track like and this is like a huge compliment honestly. It sounds bad, but like I have a track that's kind of like this with the same kind of elements and it's one of my most licensed tracks. I've made it like just because I was chilling, probably on the same vibe that you were, like just like hey, this is super nice and like this is the perfect kind of track. Like this also gets into chill playlists on Spotify and like the joke in the industry is like if you want to actually make money off of music, make like yoga music because people stream all this stuff all day long in all kinds of ambient environments. But this is like interesting and it's dynamic and it's warm and it's really good, but it also doesn't like it doesn't have anything abrasive or anything like that kind of draws too much focus. So this also means it could be good to have maybe like a little bit of a vocal. Like it would be cool to have a vocal version as well as an instrumental because I feel like there's a lot of space in it. But either way, like it sounds like the mix is really pleasant to listen to, and I love those guitars, and it's you playing trumpet. Wow. Definitely. I mean, you could release this. You could probably put it with like a publisher or just license it because it's at least good coffee money too. It's nice when you make a song that's good coffee money.
That's literally true in my case.
Literally.
I have a song that has the name Coffee in the title, and it's my most popular song. It's literally Coffee Money.
Yeah, this vibe was great. What a cool switch up at the end there too. Like crazy pristine ear candy. It just morphed really well from that really kind of chill lo-fi sort of sound, jazz sort of sound, into like a glitchy funk bass kind of thing. Really cool. I thought the chords were great. Very pretty atmosphere with all the bird chirping and stuff. I agree with Natty that the snare could be maybe a little changed in some way. It could be filtered maybe just ever so slightly, especially near the beginning where we don't have like the modern synth. We have just like the guitars and the piano and the horns, so the snare could be filtered off there. And I also thought it could be cool to try if you're working in Ableton, try a convolution reverb or a hybrid reverb on the guitar and piano and maybe even the horns, just at least in that intro to midpoint section of the song, to set them in like a very interesting different space, and then you could kind of move into that more glitchy sound. It could be cool. But yeah, great vibes.
Very good vibes all around. Loved it. So next up we have Slack DB. Tune reworking, did this roughly a year ago. Have learned a lot about mixing. Again, all feedback welcome. All right, cool. Well, Hear Tunes are always fun. Let's do it. Whoa, whoa, what was that ending? I love it. I mean,
Cool ending.
how did you go for?
Yeah, it was super thick sound. That ending drop was crazy. I liked all like the different kind of morphing synths going on. You know, maybe a little bit abrupt coming into it, but it could be a stylistic choice, so I'm not entirely mad at it. Maybe just like a couple hints that there's a drop coming up. A couple hints, whatever that means to you. I think that's mainly it. I think maybe at the beginning it sounded like the sound was maybe distorting a little bit, but I think you either make that choice as a producer to either lean into that distorted sound or kind of stay back and stay pristine with a sort of cleaner synth sound.
Yeah. I think that you definitely have learned a lot about mixing because like I've heard your newer stuff. So I think with that one, like the idea is great. You have clearly really great ideas, and it's just a little bit about the mix, like the drums and the bass could definitely pulse and slap harder. And I think you kind of know what to do now. You've been doing it for a while, and your newer stuff really slaps. I did actually take a couple of those tracks to Slovakia to my gig and to the TV and the radio, and played some tunes, and definitely sounded good on the system. So I think that really just, I would say, apply what you know now and go back and just kind of rework it. I like Alfie's comment, sounds like if Beethoven had an Ableton license. Yay. Natty.
And I like that comment as well. Good job, Alfie. But I feel like you should steal from techno a little bit. I mean, when your intro is a really nice ARP, but it feels like you're in a rush to get us to the bit you consider exciting. And then you're in the rush to get us to the next bit. And then the next bit. And then we have the sudden drop, which is also kind of I feel like if you're going to play something like this with that sudden drop, make everything else more gradual and evolvey and micro changes. Really build up the tension so that when you get to that last section with that really cool sudden drop, it's like, oh my god, what just happened here? That's what you want to have with a track like this. That sort of reaction. And the drop itself is fine. I mean, it's actually the most polished bit of the whole song so far as production value is concerned. It's really cool, and just I love all of the harmonic distortion you've got on there. It's really crunchy and thick and just nice. But now you just sort of have to pace yourself a bit. Don't be so much of a rush. Let things like that ARP become so it's almost hypnotic. To the point where we don't really discern what the beginning and the end of the ARP is anymore, and then introduce your next bit, and so on and so forth as you build up the track. And I think that would benefit what you're trying to do here a lot more.
I like this comment in the chat. Let them get really comfortable before you pull the trapdoor lever.
Exactly.
It's true. That's all storytelling. That's dramatic tension. It's really good stuff. So... awesome.
So next up, we actually have two from the same person. That's because last week there was some sort of weird thing with the form, and their submission did not come through, and so apologies for that. So Alfie has got 2 tracks to send us in this week.
Okay.
The first one,
Pick
they've
me up.
asked, does it suck big time? And does it have room for a vocal, specifically a rap?
Does it suck big time? Well, geez. That's... look, all right, Alfie. Let's go. Alfie, that was awesome. That was like maybe my favorite thing that I've heard from you, honestly. Like, the mood is so good, the vibe is great, and as Shonen Shijo is saying, it would be great to have a rapper or some kind of vocalist. Or it's just a really beautiful space for something to happen. I mean, it's got all the right things for me. I really love the drums. I generally like your drums that you pick. They're just so kind of organic, and in this, they sound really good. I mean, I don't have much feedback on this because I really like it. I didn't.
I don't have much either, I think. I think definitely you could use a rapper or even sing vocals. I think there's enough structure here for something more structured like verse chorus, or just a rap verses, and that would be great too, I think. I do think if you wanted, you could add some more creative effects like echo or phaser, flanger, some spectral devices, just here and there to break apart some of the, I don't want to say monotony, but I will just for now, the monotony of the track. However, I do think it's a great vibe overall, and I think that if you have vocals on it, you can use the vocals as a starting point to make those kind of effects decisions and to cut the track out and so on and so forth.
Agreed.
I think with the rap component as well, you've basically got a choice. I mean, you could go very old school and have a more slightly spoken rap thing going on, or you go almost sort of confessional aggressive and find someone a bit like if you've ever heard Hobson. I feel like he does this sort of where a low-key anger thing very well, and if you can find someone who can pull that off, you might be able to leverage the tension that you've got in this track very well in the vocal too. I mean, I don't really have any good recommendations on who you might poke for that, but I mean, if you're doing rap, those are kind of the two things I think you've got going on, because I don't think it would suit a modern auto-tuned mumble rap vibe. I'm not sure whether you guys feel that too.
No, yeah. I
Definitely
agree with
not.
you.
No.
We want someone who's like a wordsmith, who can just sort of bend his words deliberately rather than through effect.
Yes. No, like Kendrick Lamar type of people.
Yeah, exactly.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just to
Just
hire
get
Kendrick
Kendrick.
Lamar. Phone him up. I'm sure he'll pick up.
Hey, you never know.
So we actually have a second one to make up for last week's thing.
All
and
right, this
there's
is
a
the
different-
Alfie back-to-back special. And what's the deal with this one?
This is different from what you guys have ever heard. Hope you like it. Just want to know about the pacing and what kinds of parts can be added other than the build-up. I refuse to add a build-up, because breakbeat should not have build-ups. Don't at me.
Okay.
Some people might at you, Alfie. That's a very hot take, that one.
Ooh. SoundCloud is being funny with this link. I don't know why.
The link might be lost in time.
The link is a lot. SoundCloud is loading fine, but this. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we go.
There isn't any real need to change things just for the sake of changing. For example,
cool double bill from Alfie, a friend. Lost in Time. I mean, it definitely, you have really good vibes going on with both of these. Again, I would just say hesitate, but we really got to get some custom ear candy animation for me to flash on the screen. I just want a tiny bit more little details because the vibe is super floaty and great, and just really like little transitions. I love the melody. I love the cross between like old school jungle and like slowed down kind of vaporwave 80s, like all the things that are going into this. I could totally see like a very stylized music video. You say in the chat that there's supposed to be vocal chops in the second half. I think that would definitely help. That will move it forward and give it like a focal point and keep it from just being kind of static. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. I did.
Yeah, I agree. Vocal chops. That sounds great. That sounds like it's going to add a lot to it. I think the vibe is nice. Yeah, I like this like vaporwave, breakbeat, jungle aesthetic. Sick. I think similar to your last track, you could benefit maybe from some more creative effects like echo different reverbs just in, in like fill sections of each 4 bars, each 8 bars, just to add a little more variety and ear candy. I think there could be a little bit more movement in your bass synth, and you could also layer on some more break beats or shakers or hi-hat loops and stuff. So as you progress through the song, the drums just get more full and rich sounding. You just want to increase those dramatics as much as you can. But the synth choices were really great and vibey. I thought the mix was pretty nice, and drum choices were nice. Yeah, good chill vibes.
Nat?
I mean, there's a question of what do I do to evolve the track if I don't want build-ups? And, well, for a start, you can just invert your bass line and create a whole new section rather than have it go doom, dum. You could go...
That was very nice.
Doom, doom, and then doom, doom, and start introducing more tension in there. And you change your expectations, and then it's just about working your way back to where you already were at the start. So your structure can be sort of a roundabout loop-de-loop, and tweak it that way. The other thing would be to take more inspiration from traditional orchestral composition, where they often have recurring motifs that will disappear for a little while, and then they'll just magically find their way back in, and it's all like, okay, well, how do we get here again? So like, not everything does have to revolve around the build up, drop, and chorusy pop format. Like, those aren't the be all and end all. But it does mean sometimes, especially, we kind of get trapped in the electronic sphere of just thinking everything we take inspiration from also has to be electronic. But no, you can have a look at much older music and say, what are they doing and why does that work and why don't they need a white noise riser here to make that happen?
Yeah, you definitely don't need to go cookie cutter. Like, there are other ways to do ear candy and to do micro tensions other than build ups, just some pauses, some focuses on elements, like some reverb automation, like Aiden was saying, just creative effects will go a long way. The chat is saying then, Nathaniel, that you're a living synthesizer. VST when?
I mean, I would have thought you were the living synthesizer, Isha, given your sample pack.
Oh, we're both. We're all living synthesizers. Aiden does some pretty good vocal stuff too. Aiden, have you ever thought of making a vocal sample pack?
I don't consider myself a great vocalist, but I have wanted to make sample packs, so.
Because honestly, like, people, I see it every day in the EDMP Discord. By the way, if you're watching and you're not on our Discord, what are you even doing with your life? Discord.gg/EDMP. I think that people are always complaining that there are not enough good vocal samples and that they're just poorly organized. And so I just keep making money off my pack. I'm going to be straight up and say that, like, it's probably the best side income I've ever had. It's just one pack, and it's been out for years. And it's because, like, I didn't make Trap Drums Volume 50, like, there's vocal samples. People want, like, notes and tones, and they want them organized. I'm giving my secrets away, but just go, like, do more. There should be more. I think there just should be more. Like as much as
You're
I
a
like,
pioneer, but you don't be alone.
as much as I like hearing my own voice and like everything all the time, like there is definitely room for others. So I was thinking of doing this like Alicia Presents series and just doing more packs with people where I kind of organize it in the same way, because I think that that's really what it is people are just like, I just want this exact tone on this note or this chord, and they want to be able to find it. They don't want to have to like chop it always out of some loop. Like sometimes they just want producer tools.
They just want the boom.
No, I think totally, Natty, we got to at least make you your own contact library.
Yes.
I
That
would.
is vocal cords.
Next
I'm
time,
interested
Well, that
though,
sounds
Alicia. Let me
crazy.
know about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
we could collab or something.
Cool.
Yes, I think Aiden has a great voice. I enjoy all
Thank
your
you.
songs and music and everything. So, and now you have an audio visual set. You gotta do that somewhere else, somewhere we can see.
I know. I've got to do that on Twitch live sometime.
Please.
If you've got room for a green screen, it's worthwhile.
Compete in the ILBC challenge, and if any of you are watching who do live electronic performances, you can compete. We are starting to have real life challenges. We're having one in Bristol July 6th. We're going to be having one in New York August 14th, and then we're going to have a round in Barcelona at the end of September at Future Music Forum. So there's actual prizes to be won. You can compete remotely or in person. Pretty loose. Would love to just have you all on board. Yeah, that's really what the core of LBC was all about. This is how this all started. So we only have a couple left. We're gonna check out Shonen Shijo. Stills need to go in and add Vox to the verse. This is what I've been working on the last few weeks. Is the comment in? Is there any other comments other than that, Maddie?
And they said trying to get the low end real fat and also getting my vocals setting right in the mix.
All right.
Sticky crystal spider webs spin you up and build your head. Venomous and leopard dead. Maybe you upset.
Wow. It's like a genre combination I don't know if I've ever heard before. Natty, I'm gonna let you start on this one.
I mean, it's definitely a sort of a loosely industrial, hardstyle, hardcore mashup thing. For me, I feel like the vocal, generally where you've got it level-wise, is fine. But now I feel like it could benefit from, like, because you got this really, really thick, rich low end. And now it's kind of just about making everything else match that, because they don't quite have the same intensity yet. One place to start would be to literally screw your vocal more. Like keep it the same general level if you have to. Stick a limiter on it so it doesn't go above that level, and just screw with it more. Make it more robotic and weird and alien. Because I mean, the vocals there, the lyrical content of them is fine, but I also feel like it's more just texture in some respect than hardcore tracks are fun. They're not really too serious, and so it doesn't matter so much whether you can understand every word in precise clarity or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with messing up the vocal. I think that would be cool. For me, the one thing I think that could work a little bit better is the snare. I think the bass, as Nathaniel said, is really, really good and rich and low. The snare and the kick, they sometimes, I think they might be over squashed, like they're hitting and they don't really have like dynamic impact on me the way that I want them to. So maybe like backing off if you're limiting them, and using some transient shapers and creating these little spikes, because you need to have room for the peak to hit. Otherwise it's not a peak, right? If you just squish everything and it sits on the top, I was kind of losing it, especially because your synths were really strong and really clear. So I want like the snare to kind of like pierce through just a little bit more, and kind of be more three-dimensional, be less just psst, and be kind of like come at me. Come at me,
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro, with a snare.
You want that snare to square up.
What did you think, Aiden?
Yeah, I thought it was definitely intense. I think I agree with Natty that the bass, that the vocal, and I think the bass as well, like the kick, have the same intensity, are very like in your face, but a lot of the chordal stuff going on in the background is kind of either too clean or too low in the mix for me. So there's like a bit of a disparity in the mix, I think, there. I think you could use some tiny parts of your vocals, maybe in different areas of the song where you aren't singing, tiny little vocal chops, little stutter things. I think that could mesh the two areas together a little better. And then I also think that for your vocals, definitely screw with them a little more. I think that could be fun, and it may benefit from some formant shifting, going up and down, going through the formant registers. And you could employ a more kind of telephone like EQ, something a little bit tighter, I guess. So it's not like a full vocal, but something that sits more texturally, maybe in the upper areas or mid areas of the frequency spectrum. But I think you could play around with that and play around with experimenting with your vocals.
Definitely.
I think I have one more minor thought as well. You have a sort of breakdown, and it's not really a breakdown because you've got the bass and the kicks and everything, and they're all this. It's like you didn't want to give them up for a second and let the little more fluty synth sounds actually come out to play a bit more. I feel like that would actually help lower the energy levels just a little bit before you kick it back in and remind us this is actually a hardstyle track. Thanks, it's not some happy little ambient piece.
Happy little ambient. You sounded very Bob Ross there. Happy little trees. All right, we got one more from the feedback queue, and then I don't know, Aiden, if you have any new music, I would love to like close out the night and play one of your songs.
Sure.
All right. Well, think about it for a second. We're gonna listen to Eon UK. Is there any specific feedback, Natty, that they wanted?
About 2 hours of work, so a bit rough. Wondering if it needs a vocal. Thanks.
Okay. All right then.
And thanks for submission, Eon.
Whoa, that's a nice,
Ooh.
nice little idea. I love those like kind of like burned trumpet kind of texture thing. I think you liked it as
I'm
much as I
excited
did.
so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little instrument at the end was really, really pretty and nice. And like filtered really well. It was not shrill at all. It was just sitting right to me. I think maybe there could have been like just a little bit of a livelier melody for that synth. But you know, that could just take some more revising and just grooving on this drum loop, because it's also an amazing drum loop, and the bass is very nice and warm and liquidy. So I don't have anything else to say about it. Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
great.
Keep going. I mean, it's just like it's vibes already, and you know, it's kind of one of those things where you get that far into a track, and sometimes you already know that like, okay, well, if I want to do something with this, I'm gonna have to work on it a lot. But with this, it's like, oh, your ideas are already there. Just stretch them out, arrange them. Like you have a unique idea, and you also have something that's a really comfortable vibe. Natty?
I think it's a fantastic start. And I'm sad it was over. I mean, even from a general production level right now, everything's sitting together really nicely. So it's just about finishing the song bit more than it is, okay, you need to tweak your mix and whatever else. Just figure out what you're doing and where you're going, and just do it and get it over with as fast as possible, and then
Get it over with.
enjoy the rewards.
Yes.
Hell yes. Amazing.
I mean, sometimes I think as well, it can be worth not overthinking things.
Totally. No, and you've already got everything you need. So well done. Definitely wizard for a couple hours. Sometimes it takes me all day to get there. Aiden, you got should we listen to something of yours?
Sure. You know what? I think I might have submitted an earlier draft of this song to you, like maybe a couple months ago or a month ago. I could send that one because that's kind of the best thing to show, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and just tell the audience like what are you working on? What's up next for you?
What's up? First of all, should I send this to your Discord or what's?
Yep.
What's the best?
Yeah, DMs.
Cool.
Probably the easiest.
I'm streaming every Tuesday and Thursday right now from 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can catch me there. I'll be just working on like a lot of different Ableton projects that I have ideas for, and working on songs that I'm working on. I'll probably release this one we're about to hear next as just maybe a single, but I'm definitely in this vibe of like inspired by rave, inspired by techno, inspired by jungle, breakbeat, two-step, garage.
Yes.
Lots of like old school EDM stuff. So that's kind of, and mixing that with video games and pop music. So that's where I'm at right now.
It was before the word EDM existed. Back then it was
Yes.
It was just like house, techno. There was IDM, which was like intelligent, you know, square pusher, out tech, stuff like that. But EDM is definitely a modern invention. So
Thank you, label marketing executives.
Thank you. Excited to hear. So Aiden is currently in Boston, but moving. Where do you think you're going to move to?
I'm going to say LA, New York, or Austin, Texas. We'll see.
Probably good things for a career and stuff like that. So looking forward to it.
you to. Don't know what to say. I wish that you could have a name so I could tell my friends about you. I wish you had been twice already. That would save me lots of time too. Just like that. Don't reach for your mind like that. Put it back behind, make it stay in line. You can wait your turn, that's that. You can wait your turn, that's that. You can wait your turn, that's that. Put it back behind, make it stay in line. You can wait your turn, that's that. Hey, you're trying to rush this time. But why? And who's rushing you? Let it sit. I know my heart is capable of love. It's waiting for the right one to go. Just stop running, don't fall in that hole. Don't drop running, and just keep going.
Oh my god, this is so cool. It's almost like this could be a live performance in itself. It's kind of like moving like a DJ set list. Straight fire whips from Aiden. Thank you so much for all the great feedback and tips that you've given tonight and your lovely music and sharing all of that with us.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you
been a
so much
pleasure
for
having
having me. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you everyone as always for submitting your tunes. Do not forget we have the ILBC UK challenge coming up in Bristol. We have more stuff. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check out Aiden doing his own streams on North American time zones. We love you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.